Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who Review, episode number 107. Yes, I did promise last episode I was going to cover, the Aztecs, first Doctor story, but I figured though, I was looking at the title for New Who, I'm like, wait, I do remember these episodes very well. But which one of the series? Now, I've only discussed from New Who, I've only discussed, whatever was on this DVD, along with discussing pretty much the entirety of the Jodie Whittaker run. So, why don't we start with the very first series of New Who, Series 1, released in 2005, where the Doctor is Christopher Eccleston. One of his companions is Rose Tyler. The first series, of Doctor Who under the new era is basically lots of setup for other stuff. Basically the end of this did basically help set up the events of Torchwood. Yes, so Rose, released in 2005, the first new canon Doctor Who thing released since the Doctor Who movie, which I will discuss in the future, don't worry about that. So in this story, we start off with basically not the Doctor, but our actual companion, who will be the companion for the first three series of this New Who. That companion is Rose Tyler, played by Billy Pepper, which I can kind of see why basically that Rose Tyler are probably removed from the show, because one thing I was noticing though, because at the start she looked pretty thin, and over time apparently she was putting a little bit of weight. Either she got pregnant or she just really wanted to leave the show. So in this first episode, she's with her boyfriend Mickey, who is black, and nothing wrong with that at all. So they actually were dating for quite a while, and then later on they did break up off screen. He later got married to another companion, which I'll discuss that when I talk about End of Time. So basically in this one, Rose Tyler, while looking at the base of the store she works at, runs into the Autons, making their first appearance since Terror of the Autons back in 1971. First appearance 34 years. And here's a weird fun fact about the Autons. After this episode, yes, an episode, a 45 episode, the Autons would never return until the end of Matt Smith's first series. I'm not kidding about that. It was at the end of series, I think it was 5. Yes, that's when they finally returned. Where they actually look like mannequins. They actually updated them from modern day. Very good they did that. They also debuted in the story Jackie Tyler, Rose's mom, and Eccleston, the way this is portrayed, when he sees himself with Mary, that's the first time he actually saw himself like that. Now, at the time, basically, for the longest time, up until the 50th anniversary, they never actually explained exactly what caused Paul McGann to become Eccleston as a result of the Last Great Time War, which was mentioned here, and there's a little expansion in a later episode. So, and of course, his outfit is basically this long black trench coat with this plain outfit. There's no tie. Yeah, first Doctor with no tie. Yes, it's also the first one to wear boots. Yes, because generally put, a lot of the other Doctors either wear dress shoes or sneakers. That's generally put how they dress. So, eventually Rose convinces the Doctor to take her with him, leading to adventures basically throughout this whole entire run. The very next episode, End of the World, sees the Doctor take her to the far future, where all the humans are dead, except one, Lady Cassandra, who apparently had a whole lot of plastic surgeries, even removed her chin because I thought it made her look fat. Oh my gosh. And apparently the only thing kept her alive is being sprayed with water. Yes, because all she is this piece of skin with a face on it. That's all that's left of her. And throughout this story, the episode, there's a series of murders, and eventually it's concluded Lady Cassandra herself was responsible for it, which is kind of weird, but she did kind of have court people do it. And then she died and came back winter time after that, and that was it for her. The very next story, next episode, was a two-parter. Yes, a two-parter. The Unique Dead and Aliens of London. Excuse me. I'm trying to remember what Unique Undead was. I remember Aliens of London. I remember that really well. Let me take a look at this one. Because I'm trying to remember this one. I don't remember this one being there. Okay, so apparently this is a story team with Charles Dickens. And it's the first story set in the past. And there's also this thing called The Geth. This weird... I barely remember this episode. I don't really remember seeing it, but that's kind of the story here. But I do remember the next two. That being Aliens of London, World War III. This two-parter... Which, by the way, here's the thing. Rusty Dave is practically a lot of Series 1. He wrote the first two stories, 4, 5. He also did 7. And he did the last 3. So basically we have these mysterious people dying, these public officials, and then we have it where these people who are overweight becoming, like, one become a prime minister, and yeah, you're like, why are all these chubby politicians all here? Well, these ones are all aliens, called the Selene, who appear in this two-parter and one other episode of the series, and then they become recurring aliens for Sarah J. Adventures. Yes, for some weird reason. And apparently their biggest weakness is salt. And it becomes like a Scooby-Doo adventure. Yeah, this two-parter also debuted Harriet Jones. A woman who later became Prime Minister, and appeared 2 more times after this. Appeared in the Christmas story that started off Series 2, and later popped up at the start of the final, basically the last two-parter of Series 4. And that was the last time we ever saw her. Here, she's just a reporter who does everything, like Harriet Jones, reporter, whatever. Also, this two-parter brought about the return of Unit, though it's not very noteworthy for this particular one. But yes, Unit basically comes back in the story, and they're here under the original, basically their initial, what the anagram stands for, United Nations Intelligence Task Force. It was later changed to Unified Intelligence Task Force because the real life UN actually sued the BBC over this, even though that they've used this particular, what it stands for, since the frickin' 70s. Why? Because now apparently they take notice of it? Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird. It's not really noteworthy story. They play a minor role in this two-parter. But this is leading to pretty much all defeat except for one. Only one is not beaten. Later pops up in Boomtown. I'll get to that later. So, next we have episode 6. We're like halfway through this point of this one. Yeah, there's also this thing about aliens in modern day, because this is basically a thing with Modern Who where they constantly do modern day. It's a bunch of everything. Yeah, there's also the first one that featured actual aliens invading London, and the public knows about it. Yeah, except these were fake aliens, not the actual ones. Yes. Yeah. Which is so interesting, this one. Really kind of funny ending, but it was like, oh, I've decided to be naked, which means unzip my bodysuit in order to show ourselves. Yeah, get this. The Selene are family, but that's not the name of their species. It's just a family of criminals who are all chubby. And that just, there's something with that one. So, then after this, it comes, get this. This is where Robert Sturman wrote this one. This was, I kid you not, the very first Doctor Who's episode I ever saw. I saw this episode as part of a marathon of episodes and introduced me to my favorite Doctor Who monster, the Daleks. Except we have one Dalek here. Yes, just one. So, they end up in the year of 2012, where apparently they meet this this billionaire who owns the internet, which is impossible. So it shows a museum, like, oh, here's my prized possession. And the Doctor's like, that's Dalek. And he does ask the Dalek this question, how the heck are you alive? They're all dead. This is thanks to what happened the last Time War, which this is not expanded upon until 5th anniversary here. So we see this Dalek basically shooting off its little... It does a little exterminate, he does fly briefly, and later on he self-destructs. But this is my introduction to Doctor Who. This is basically the first thing I ever watched Doctor Who, this particular episode, which also debuted a companion that only appeared in this episode and the following episode, and there was a reason why for that. So, then they leave, go to the future again, this time go to a space station, which was all about game shows. I'm trying to think, what's the game shows? Yeah, game shows. Where... Actually, it was like news. It was all news. And get this, we had Simon Pegg in the episode, which was this editor. Oh, he's basically like the running place. And there's this alien above, like, oh yeah, that's our boss. This weird word alien CGI creature. Which I think this was the first instance in this show of CGI. Which the Doctor does stop this thing. And then the station pops up in the two-part finale for this one. Also, during the course of the story, Adam gets greedy and becomes a computer. So the Doctor does not like what he did, so he then proceeds to take him back to his time, drop him off, and he's never heard from him again. Yeah. And then right after this, we actually have Father's Day. This is written by a longtime Doctor Who writer, Paul Cornell. This is the one that debuted the character of Pete Tyler. Well, there's a couple different versions of the guy. There's the one pops up in the next series of the show. So, this episode was called this because Rose misses her father. Her father died by being hit by a car while come back with groceries. Yes. And they even go back a little further to the wedding day, which apparently that Pete and Jackie had Rose prior to getting married. And then they get married, and there's also these weird dragons outside, which apparently, like, the only way these dragons react to anything, and like, what? Let's have baby Rose being held by the adult version, so that apparently got their attention. It's by far a very interesting story per se, but it was the first instance of the show of don't interfere with the past. But it was nice to have basically Rose meet her father. And then we have another two-parter, the second two-parter of the entire New Who. This is written by new creator. This guy later became the guy that succeeded Russell Davies as the showrunner of Doctor Who, Stephen Moffat. Yes, he would end up being basically a regular writer. He would not write any story. He wrote one story in Series 2. In Series 3, he wrote one. In Series 4, he wrote 2 stories. Either any of this especially came afterwards. But he would become the regular writer afterwards. This two-parter, known as The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances, this one, The Empty Child, is actually not the pilot episode, The Unearthly Child. This is a story set during the London Blitz. One of 2 times the Doctor goes here. The other goes during the 11th Doctor's run. Yes. So, this particular two-parter debuts a very popular recurring character in New Who. That being, played by John Barrowman, Captain Jack Harkness, who had his own spaceship. He's a time agent in the future, And he apparently is a womanizer, which they later retconned he was actually bisexual. It's Russ Davis, unable to basically just let that slide. Though he had kissing Doctor in the finale. So the whole thing was that there was this nanotech virus that infected this boy who's looking for his mommy, who turned out to be a girl who was actually claimed to be a sister, because she apparently had it when he was very young, when she was very much younger. Okay, and then eventually everything is all solved. Like, pretty happy ending of this one. And the specific type of doctor dance he does not. He does kind of dance, but it's all about an ambulance, an alien ambulance. But really interesting two-parter. And of course, Jack joins the crew for the next few episodes. Yeah, for the next few episodes, he's part of the crew, and then he leaves. Probably because basically he's getting tortured. Next came Boomtown, the return of the one Celine who survived. This woman became the mayor. This was Marguerite Blaine. All by creating a nuclear reactor so she could create a surfboard to go back to her home planet. Eventually she does, and takes the convincing, and of course everybody follows around. It's basically the first one. It's kind of like one of those things, oh, we remake this villain for this one episode, and then we never hear from the Celine ever again in Doctor Who. Well, in the main Doctor Who series. They later became like recurring aliens for Sarah Jane Adventures. Now, the last two episodes are Bad Wolf and Party of the Ways. For a little while, there's been these things like Bad Wolf pop up everywhere throughout. This is a recurring plot thread where the Doctor. This is kind of weird. So, the Doctor, Jack, and Rose all wake up in different places. Like, you have Doctor waking up in the verge of Big Brother. We have Jack ending up in a place where it's a fashion show, and Rose is basically a version of the weakest link. Kind of. Except people don't get eliminated by simply walking away, they get vaporized. Yes, and this is a really cool two-parter. So, then the Doctor proceeds to allow to leave after damaging equipment. And suppose like, oh yeah, eliminated, maybe go home. Nope, gets vaporized. And so they're like, oh, I'm on station 12. Like, no, this is basically like New Cell or whatever. But change it with them in the same place. They basically explain, after everybody escapes from where they were, that apparently after the Doctor took down the corrupt New Cell, apparently everything just fell apart. They're like, really? So, like, oh yeah, save the world. No, apparently, like, government stopped because this one station stopped working, which was weird. And, like, the Earth is not the same. Oh yeah, there's also this mysterious thing on the outside. So Rose got out of her thing, no problem. And Jack, of course, basically had this thing where, oh, he hangs out with two female robots. But one of them proceeds to grow up, of course, apparently she doesn't mind it all. And then he proceeds to destroy them by pulling a gun out of his rear end. And it's like, where'd you pull that from? He's like, don't ask. And then eventually, he doesn't actually. Here's the thing: Jack does not wear his iconic outfit that he's known for with the blue coat and the outfit he doesn't wear torch with. It's not made debut later. So then they basically put together an army. Everyone's all freed, and then they kind of figure out like, oh, we have this person in charge. And then the person gets teleported away. And then she proceeds killed by her actual master. The Daleks have returned. And like wait. And out this space, it was like, it's this big, huge site of like about 50,000 spaceships. All flying saucers because the Daleks don't have actual spaceships, they have flying saucers. They've had this since the classic era. Yes. And this was an amazing sight. And keep this all done with CGI. Yes. And the Doctor is contacted by the person who actually is running these Daleks. Is it like some Supreme Dalek? Oh no. Yeah, that was actually a bot I'll pick up later. Yeah. So, and he's like, oh, of course you survived. The Emperor Dalek. First time he's been seen since Evo Dalek, and he looks so different. Like, wait, how the heck? Like, unless you watch Classic Who, you were like, who? Yes. The Emperor of the Daleks, apparently he survived. And then so apparently all these Daleks, by the way, all Daleks in this story are all CG. There's like maybe a handful of actual Daleks throughout this whole story. So the Doctor is basically just fortified in the space station in order to save Rose. He proceeds to have programmed the TARDIS to go back to the past and have her get trapped there until all this stuff going on here. And of course, he's like, I have nothing here. Despite the fact she has her mom and her boyfriend. So then she proceeds to get a tow truck, open up the Eye of Harmony, well, the heart of the TARDIS, gets this energy stuff put in her eyes, and she becomes a goddess, where she teleports herself back to the future. And supposedly Jack is killed, though he comes back. Yeah, it's kind of weird, the whole thing with Jack, basically. He gets shot multiple times, but then he comes back instantly. Rose did that, and they've never undid it. At all. Yeah. So, like, oh yeah, wakes him up, and then, like, I'm gonna destroy all these Daleks, kill the Emperor Dalek. And then the Doctor's like, you need to stop. You need a doctor. So then the Doctor proceeds to make out with Rose. Yes, he makes out with her, and then takes her to the TARDIS. Leaving Jack behind, he of course goes back to the past where he's stuck there, and that leads into stuff to which leads into Torchwood. So then it's like, oh, this body's fully old, kind of, and then he proceeds to regenerate, standing up, and becomes David Tennyson. And they had like a bonus story to basically have Rose react to it. Yeah, it's just a little short. And, well, there is a behind the scenes reason why Eccleston left. People are thinking, why did Eccleston leave the show after one season? Well, the reason I have heard of the reason why he left was to avoid being typecasted. Yep, that was simply the reason why he left the show. Do I think he had a good season? Yes. Yes, I think he did. I think this was a good start for New Who. And people would think, New Who, this is one of the seasons people would think of. Yes, people love David Tennyson, but he was technically the first Doctor I was introduced to, Eccleston. Tennyson basically I basically watched pretty much the whole season and the very next season of the show via a sci-fi marathon in like 2007 or 8, I think it was. Excuse me. It was prior to the start of Series 3, so I think it was back in 07. I think it was. Yeah, it was this long-running marathon, and then the Sci-Fi Channel basically started airing it. But the first season as a whole, really good. Mm-hmm. Of course, Billy Pepper would continue period the next season, then she would lead the show. Which, I've not heard the reason why she left the show. At least Eccleston, there's a reason why. John Byrne probably left the show because basically he was getting a spinoff. Presumably, anyways. I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. But there's no denying, in pop culture, this is one thing that John Barrowman is known for. Well, this along with playing Malcolm Merlin in Arrow. Yes, and also, when Arrow first started, he was actually with two actors I was very familiar with. The other being the actress who played Moira Queen, because I saw her on Star Trek Voyager. Yep. Eccleston himself, the only thing I saw him in after this was in the first G.I. Joe movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of the only thing I saw him in. Even I'm thinking, like, have I seen anything else in besides G.I. Joe? Well, I did see him Gone Sixes, but that came like after, that came before the show. Here's something kind of weird though. It seems like he has done a lot. Oh yeah, he was also in Thor: Dark World. I haven't seen much of it. Apparently, this is kind of weird though. Apparently, either he was on TV. I think he was. I think he did a TV show of this. Yes. Yeah. But that's pretty much a nutshell for this first series of Doctor Who. Would I recommend starting this new Who? Yes, definitely. There's some mild references to the previous Who here, but still good season overall. Okay, so that is pretty much a particular view. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to notifications, and I'll see you all tomorrow for the Apothecary Diaries. Okay, thanks, you. Bye.